Paint Box friends. I'm glad to have you back joining us this month. And I'm also glad to have here my fiance, David. And this is going to be his very first time trying any kind of painting, artistic painting, all ever. So, are you excited about that?
I'm thrilled.
You are actually kind of nervous about it.
Absolutely. But you're going to guide me through it.
That's right. And he knows that I tell him all the time, I've got beginner students here who come in and are very scared and afraid at first. And I guess it's because trying something new, you feel like you might fail. But I don't let anybody fail. We just kind of take baby steps a little bit at a time, and I hold hands and make sure everybody doesn't fall down. So we're going to get started here with the Mallard Duck. That was part of the Father's Day theme for June. And so David's first painting is going to be a Mallard Duck. You ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Okay. We'll see you in a minute at step one. Okay, David and friends at home, are we ready to get started? Okay, so the first step is our drawing, and we need to get our brush just a little bit wet. These are water-soluble oils, and so we're going to use a little bit of water on the end of your brush to thin down this yellow ochre. That's the second deep yellow, like kind of a mustard yellow. And then we're going to mark our parameters. That's how we start a drawing. Just for guidelines, let's put a dot at the center point on each side. And then we're going to use those as little guidelines for us. So for example, let's start with the top of the bird's head. If we come down from center about a ½ inch, and I think we go over about a ½ inch, that could be the edge of his head right here. So down from center a ½ inch, then over to the right about a ½ inch. Make a little dot. Now, his head on this side, if you come down about 1/4 of the way on the right here, and come in about 1 inch. And then you can make a little dot here. Maybe it's about at the 1/3 to 1/4 mark. That's where his shoulder, this right shoulder, comes off the page. So over here, right here, David, this right shoulder, his little right shoulder or body, right side of the body is right at about the 1/3 to 1/4 side. So let's start drawing a little bit. I'm going to connect those 2 dots that make the side of his head and face and his neck and shoulder, and then that little side of his body. So I kind of made a head with his little fat cheeks, and then his neck kind of came down like an S shape. So you look at your picture here, and you want to come like the little rounded part of his head. I didn't get that quite round enough. So in other words, take a look at this. His head is almost like an oval. Can you just draw an oval right there?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And then let's draw the back of his body. It's kind of like, it's almost like, if you look at it, it's like a big basketball going both, almost like top half of a basketball. So it comes over this way, almost to the corner, and then this side comes off the edge here. So that's that side, and the other side just makes almost a full circle all the way to the corner. There you go, that's good. Then, on the back of that basketball, let's add those little duck tail, the little things sticking out there. The 2 little duck tails. And see, one of them's kind of close to, oh yeah, we don't have his beak on there yet, but. Okay, let's go ahead and put his beak on. Right about from the middle of his face at a 45-degree angle, coming through the center line, and put his little beak. I'm going to dab his 2 eyes in. So it's about at, see how this beak's almost like at a 45-degree angle. There you go. And then let's put his neck in from the first oval, the little circle of the head that you drew, the oval that you drew in for his head. We're going to come down with a little neck on either side. Kind of like a little hourglass almost looking. And there's going to be little feathers for the wings, but that's really about it. I think what I'll do is draw this little stripe around his neck, the little white stripe. And I do draw kind of fast, and I want everybody to know that the drawing is just a simple guideline for where your paint's going to go, so it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to come along and do some painting to kind of change the drawing anyway. But that's just a basic, the oval for the head, kind of the half of a basketball circle for the back, tail feathers, and a beak. And that's it for the drawing. For my step here, I'll let you all pause during this next break and get caught up and work on your drawing until you're happy with it, and then meet us back here for step 2. Okay, we are ready to start step 2, and that's going to be the background, and in this case it's just water, a very, very light water background to kind of not take too much attention away from the bird itself. So we're going to start with making 3 shades of a light blue. The first shade is going to be white, so I'm just picking that up with my palette knife, which is like a little spatula, just kind of bendy at the end. So you just want to keep your paint on that first top inch or so, because you know you kind of can't use the part where it doesn't bend. So I'm just picking that paint up, putting it down here, and I'm going to reach over to my ultramarine blue. That is your deep sea. That's why they call it ultramarine. Deep sea blue, and I take just well, maybe even less than that, just a little bit to make it very light off-white, which is tinted to the light blue. So that's what we call a tint, is something that's almost white. It's got a little light blue in it. The next color, I'm going to take a little less white and add this time a little more blue. So that's not too hard to mix. And that's going to be our medium blue. And then I'm going to make a dark blue. I may actually make a 4th color that's kind of a gray. I noticed I've got a little bit of a gray blue, which is kind of pretty. So I'm going to make the dark blue now that's less white and more blue. And then, like I said, I'm going to make one more. So David, let's pick up your knife and try that mixing thing, the little spatula. Let's pick up a little white, a little blue, and this time I'm going to have you put in a little tiny speck of that dark brown. That's called the burnt umber. And it's going to make something a little grayish, and that will make the water maybe look more realistic rather than being kind of way too bright. Oh, I like that. So I think, David, your pile's a little heavy on the brown. So if it looks too brown, I usually try to, if I've made a color that's incorrect, I usually cut it in half and remove half of it. Otherwise, you have to start like making a huge correction. And now you only have to make a little correction. So that would be, I think you can add a little more white and a little more blue. And you would have this kind of gray color, just a little bit. And then I'm going to take my brush, make sure I've cleaned out the yellow ochre from the drawing stage. Dip it in a little water to keep it movable. And I think I'll pick up the medium blue first. So when you hold your brush, you want to hold it about 3/4 of the way back, because everybody's habit is to get in there and draw, like with a pencil or chalk or a crayon or pen. We don't want to do that. We want to use a brush. So we're going to hold it back. And we're going to use the brush just like a golf club or a tennis racket. It's going to come from your shoulder. So you're not using your fingers or your wrist. You want everything to kind of come from your shoulder, because you're painting with a long flat surface of that brush. So first thing we do is what we call load our brush. We're going to, did you rinse out your yellow ochre there? There you go. Okay. Then I'm going to sweep like I'm sweeping with a broom. I'm going to pull that paint up. And then I'm just going to come over here, and I don't want to be 90-degree or 45-degree angle. I'm going to come just lay it down real soft and flat against the canvas. And I'm going to reach over here now and get this darker blue and just kind of streak that. And I'm kind of making long horizontal wavy strokes, not too wavy. Don't want the bird to look like he's on a rough, stormy sea. So I'm going to pick that gray color up. I think that's going to be nice now to put in here, just kind of make it not too bright. And I'm taking these strokes just right up to the yellow line where the duck's drawing is. Go right up to that line. We thinned it with water, that yellow drawing, so it should be drying pretty quickly. If oils aren't thinned, they don't dry very quickly at all. That's something you will learn. They actually don't dry because they don't interact with oxygen. They cure from within, so it was sort of like a varnish on your floor. And I'm still just going with soft, wavy. I'm gonna go to the light color now. So what you should be feeling is that paint sliding under your brush. That's what we like about oil paints. You feel that really wonderful, luscious texture. They call it the buttery medium, because it really is fun to slide it along the canvas. And you want to cover up that canvas. It's just a cotton duck fabric, and it doesn't have the prettiest texture, so it's prettier to see thick oil paint brush strokes. And when we're too thin with our paint, it's what we call, it looks miserly. It looks kind of cheap, like you were skimping on your paint. So with the price of paints these days, it's not like when I first started painting and some tubes were $45 each, because oils are natural pigments. They're mined from the earth, and they can get pretty expensive, but now they have so many alternatives and mass-produced paint that we can get it at a pretty good price. So use that paint up, keep it thick. You can alternate different colors in the waves. So one thing you want to do, if you want those colors to show up kind of alternating, is use the pressure on your brush very lightly, and keep that angle really shallow. Keep the angle of this brush really shallow, and that paint will just slide along. I'm going to fill in, don't forget to fill in between the little tail feathers. And I think, oh, I've got a little more here in the corner I've got to fill in. You like the feeling of that paint under your brush?
Yeah. Mine's a little grayer than yours, but
That's all right. Actually, my first painting here was a little grayer as well. Why don't you you know what you could do, David, is just just take your brush, just tap it into that deeper blue, and then just a tiny little bit and drag that through. Just spread it around, and you can make some different color waves. And you can add some white and take it out again if you want, or that Q-tip you can take out, or yeah. So you can use your brush. You don't always have to use the palette knife to mix your paint. You can mix it on your canvas. So it is a little different than the one I did originally, but I like it. And so I think I'm just gonna leave it and let you guys have fun spreading that paint around. And I'll take a break and we'll pause the video. And oops, you know one thing I'm gonna do real quick? I think I'm gonna smooth this out around his head. It's looking kind of choppy, but that's okay. We're gonna come back and really we're gonna look at all the details in the last step. So right now it's just sort of like getting about 75% of it down and being happy with it. And then we'll come back in the very last step and we'll look at all the little details. So I'll see you at the next step. Okay, David, are you ready to start the next step?
I am, thanks.
That's going to be the back of the bird's body, let's say his back, well, his full body and then the lower part of his neck. So for the back half, we're gonna make 3 shades of dark kind of gray brown. So let's start with that. The back half of his body is that pretty soft gray brown. Let's take our palette knife and pick up some of that dark umber brown. And to darken that up a little bit, I'm gonna add a speck of the ultramarine blue. So it makes kind of a blackish brown. And that can be, well, actually, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add more blue to that. I want the darkest shade to be almost a black. And I'm not gonna use the black tube of paint that comes in your kit because it's too black, it's artificially black. So what we've made here, hopefully, is a warm, dark brownish black. And that's gonna be for right here on the back, the middle of the back, most of that body area. Then the next color is gonna be kind of a medium gray brown. So once again, I'm gonna pick up a little brown, a little blue, and we're gonna add some white this time. And this time it looks a little bluish. I don't think that bird's that bluish, so I'm gonna add a little more brown so it's kind of a light brownish gray for his lighter feathers there. And then I'm gonna take just the burnt umber maybe by itself as the third color. So I've got umber and blue making a kind of a blackish color. So I think, David, on that, which is your darker color, your palette, that one, let's add some more of this ultramarine blue, like the rest of what you've got there, all that, maybe even more. All right, so that's your blackish color. Then the third shade was just the burnt umber by itself. So we're gonna have the blackish one, the pretty dove gray, and then just a little bit of burnt umber by itself. That's the brown you put down last out of the tube. Okay, now let's get started on this little guy. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this darkest black, and I wanna remember, hold this, it's coming from the shoulder, you're gonna sweep that color up just like it's a little broom, and paint those little tail feathers in. They were kind of almost that blacker color. And then this part of the body, like most of this back, that's all around, like below the beak, all that's pretty much that blackish color. And coming down along the side of the neck here, it's a nice contrast to that pretty light brown neck. And I'm gonna take blue and brown on the end of my brush and just mix them together to make some more black. It's running out there. And I'm glad that David agreed to try a project with me, because I do send a lot of paint boxes to men, and lots of men maybe for birthdays or Father's Day or retirement. And when I first started painting, I kind of thought, like a lot of people do, oh, painting's just a hobby for a lot of women who are retired or maybe just really artistic and creative. And then when I started taking workshops around the country and really working with artists, I thought, well, gosh, all my teachers at these workshops, all the famous artists are men. And that was probably about 20 years ago. And in the last 20 years, there are many more professional women artists, which is a good thing. But for a long time, the really big, successful artists in this country were dominated by males. And it's kind of nice to know that a lot of women are out there making a really good profession out of, and I'm talking mostly about oil painting. I don't really know about sculpture and watercolor, but in the oil painting industry, it's the Oil Painters of America is our group, if you really love oils. And most of the master painters had been male until recently. We've got some more female master painters. Look up Oil Painters of America online. It's a wonderful organization. Once you can do some original work, you just need to submit 3 originals that you're proud of, and they will accept you in to the organization. And you get some publications and newsletters. There are some regional and national shows that are really fun to go to. I've been to a few, and there's an artist here in Louisville named John Michael Carter, who was been president of OPA in the recent past, and he's a friend here and a very talented artist. In fact, he may be, I didn't tell you, I'm in the light gray now, and I'm just adding the wings. See these little feathery wings on the side? Yeah, that's what you're doing there too, David. Just kind of going with some circular little fluffy wings. I went to an art show a long time ago, like 30 years ago or more, and it was a show of John Michael Carter's work, and I thought, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to paint like him. Of course, everybody paints differently, so my work doesn't look just like his, and that's a good thing. I would like it if it did, but we're all different. Everybody's worked a number of different years. I'm adding now, I'm picking up with my brush, with that little sweeping movement, I'm picking up just the plain brown, and I'm dabbing it here on the back a little bit, kind of breaking up all that black. And for this right side of his body, we're gonna make up some lighter browns for the neck and the right side of the body. I'm gonna pick up just a little white on the end of my brush and see if I can't kind of drag it through some of those wing feathers and back feathers, because it was looking a little dark. All right, I'm now going to make some browns for the neck and the right side of the body. And what we're going to do now is we're going to use, David, I think you need some more of this. We're going to use the brown that says burnt sienna. So I'm going to toss that to you. Luckily, David's a good catch in more ways than one. David was in radio for a short while out of college, and so he actually likes to get behind the microphone and talk, but since he's not behind a microphone in here today, he's staying kind of quiet. First thing I'm going to do, let's see it, I'm going to take this burnt sienna, so that's this reddish brown, that's the one I just gave you, David, the burnt sienna. I'm going to put that down and mix it with the burnt umber, that's that chocolate brown. That you have a tube of it there, I think. I'm just going to mix those two together. And that's pretty red because the burnt sienna is very reddish. So I'm going to pick up some more of that dark brown. And that can be for the medium color. For the light color, I'm going to take a little bit of that burnt sienna and a little bit of that burnt umber, the two browns, mix them together, and this time we're going to add a little white. And that's for these highlights along the side. And then I'm going to make almost a blackish color for coming down the center. Actually, let's just go ahead and make that same black that we made up above. It was just 50-50 of the ultramarine blue and the dark umber brown. That makes a nice black. Oh, yep, ultramarine blue. And that's just gonna go just the little speckles down the front of his chest. So let's start with the lighter color. The one, do you have one here, David, that's almost white, kind of? Yeah, is that the one you're making now? Right here. This lighter brown, and I'm just going to tap it along the side of his neck. And then the other side of his neck. And then a little bit of that on his back on the right side. And I'm gonna put the medium brown just kind of right down the middle of his neck. And a little bit here. Just kind of making a little feather. Now I'm gonna just make some little choppy strokes that look like feathers. And I'm gonna take the black that I made and we're just gonna tap it down the middle to be some of those that darker. Well, like I said, we'll come back at the end. I'm gonna make, I'm gonna use these gray colors we had up above, this kind of medium gray. Let's just kind of swish some of that in this lighter side over here. I had a little left over. And at the end, like I said, at the end we'll come back and fix anything we need to fix. So we've got kind of a lighter brown over here. I'm even gonna put a little light highlight. So just picking up that white and bringing it down the side here. And I'm not gonna worry about making it perfect now. We're gonna come back later. But you'll be surprised when you pull it all together. You'll be surprised, and I hope you're gonna like what you have. So I'm gonna take a break and then we'll go to the final, well, not the final step, the next to last step, and we're going to paint the head and the beak. Okay, during the break I helped David out a little bit because this is his very first time, and I know for some of you all, when it's your first time, it's a little frustrating. Mostly because, you know, you haven't learned the well, for one reason, you haven't learned the names of the colors. So when I'm saying dark umber brown and it's the dark chocolate brown, and then I keep moving. So I know that's hard to kind of keep up with me. But pause if I'm mentioning a color, and so David can't do that with me right now. So, but if you're at home and I'm mentioning a color, pick up a brown, and you need a minute, go ahead and pause the video. Find your dark umber brown. I tell my students there's only, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 colors plus white. So if you can just sit down in front of the TV one night and write those colors down, or I'm gonna reach over here. Sit down with your palette paper. These colored squares that I put on a palette diagram don't necessarily, that just pulled them off the computer graphics program. They don't necessarily completely 100% match, but you get the idea. Your lemon yellow is a bright yellow. Yellow ochre is a mustardy yellow. Burnt umber is your chocolate brown. So just see if you can't sit down and memorize 10 colors. That's all it takes. And I have students who've painted for 15 years and they still don't know the names of the colors. Because I don't think they've ever tried to commit it to memory. So just see if you can do that, and it'd be a good little homework exercise and help you to kind of keep up with me. So just like anything else, you've got to learn, and you've got to practice, and you've got to memorize some of the routines. But now we're going to go in and paint this beautiful green part of the mallard's head. So the first color we're going to make is the dark blue-green at the top of his head. I'm going to take the ultramarine blue, just a little bit of it, and I'm going to take that viridian emerald, beautiful emerald viridian green. So it's the last color out there. I'm going to mix those two together, and that is a really pretty color. Okay, so that's going to be that for the top of his head. Then for this next color down, it's got a little yellow in it where it's kind of glowing. So I think what I'm going to do there is just take viridian, a little bit. See how I'm just getting a little bit on my knife here? And I'm going to take some of this lemon yellow, and those two together are going to make a really pretty glowing green. Might steal a little of that pile and add some more yellow just for these little tiny bright highlights. Add a little more yellow. So there are 3 colors right there for the head. I've got the dark blue at the top, then I've got this medium green going in and this pretty yellow green as an accent, and I'm going to make one more color, and I'm going to take this cerulean blue. We haven't used that yet today. That's that medium blue. It's called, cerulean means sky, so it's the sky blue. And let's put a little white in it. And we're going to dab a little of that into one of those cheeks just to kind of give it another little glow, like a, what is that on a mallard? Like kind of an opalescent, opalescence to their feather. I don't know if it's called opalescence, but it sounds good to me. Okay, so I'm going to take the brush. We're going to sweep over here and pick up the darkest color. It's on the end of the brush there. I'm just going to flip that brush over so I can spread that paint in them. Now this, a lot of my students are worried about, oh gosh, how am I going to get this paint not to mix into the watercolor? So what I'm going to do is leave it a little gap. I'm going to just tap a little slowly and not touch that watercolor if I can. And that dark color comes along the bottom of his face here, kind of down the side, across his cheek. So it's really around the outside of his head, that darker color. The other little cheek over there. Looks like he's got a little toupee right now. And then I think the last little bit is right here above that white little striped collar he has on. Okay, so we're going to finish up. We've taken the tip of our brush, the corner with a little ultramarine blue and a little burnt umber, and we just tapped in the little dark eyes. Maybe this little dark spot at the end of his nose. Let's go ahead and get his beak in. And I made 2 shades of yellow for that. For the first shade, we'll just use this lemon yellow as it is. Well, actually, no, I'm going to add a little white to that. Let's lighten that up a little bit. It's a little deep. And then for the other side of it, I'm going to use the white, the little lemon yellow I'm stealing from that pile, and a little of the yellow ochre. I need to add a little brown, just a little brown in there. Maybe a little more brown because it's looking a little. And that's the darker side of the beak. So I'm going to pick it up with my brush. I'm going to lay in that lighter side. Just tapping a little bit slowly so I don't get into all that wet green paint. And then I'm going to pick up this darker shadow color. It's a little dark. I may add some lemon yellow to that. And I think that's about it for now. Oh, I'm going to take this the end of my brush with a little blue and brown mixed together. The duck had little markings on his beak. It almost looked like a little kind of an X shape. And then we'll come back in the next step called finishing up, and we'll make sure we have everything the way we like it. Okay, so we're back to finish up. I noticed that I haven't put that little white collar back in. I moved it earlier. It was in the wrong place. I'm going to take the white on the end of my brush and just give him some little kind of white feathers around that kind of what I call that little collar on his neck. And then I'm going to take the chisel end of my brush again. Let's use a little burnt umber and a little ultramarine blue. Makes a soft little black, and I'm going to put this little line there, a little line around his beak, which is kind of pretty right here. And then let's not forget the nostrils. Corner of the brush, little corner of the brush with the blue and the brown. and put in those nostrils that make him look kind of cute. And you can, if you have just a little tiny bit, on the tiniest little bit of your corner of your brush, you can almost draw a little circle around those nostrils. And I think this little guy is about finished. Let me see, I might want to turn the canvas just a little bit and fill in those little gap areas that we always talk about, that we leave so we don't blend watercolor and duck feathers together and that makes a big mess. And then I think I have a little bit of watercolor left here. I'm gonna just fill in some of those last little gaps. And I'm pretty happy with this. We'll see how we'll have David show us his in a minute, and we'll see how he feels about his first painting. And so we'll see you back here in the studio in a minute. Okay, well, we have finished, and David has finished his very first painting ever.
It's show and tell time.
Show and tell time. This was the original. That was the one I did in the quiet and peace of my own studio when I had time. And then when I get here, I try to go a little faster so that the video is not too many hours long. So this was what I did today, and David is going to show his.
With a little bit of help, by the way.
I did get in there and help him a little bit, and I wish you all were here in the studio where I could show you in person and help you, but please send questions in, and like I said, Facebook friend me, and we can talk on the group page, and I give you the address in the box to get on the group page, and we can all discuss things that we found that were too hard or were joyfully too easy. So I really am glad to have a gentleman do one of the projects with me here on the video, and maybe I'll even ask him back. I'm not sure if he'll agree to do it, but happy Father's Day to everybody, and we'll hope to see you all next time. And thank you very much, David.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Somewhere there's music, how faint the tune. Somewhere there's heaven, how high the moon. There is no moon above when love is far away too, till it comes true that you love me as I love you. Somewhere there's music, it's where you are. Somewhere there's heaven, how near